Today, I'm going to tell you about a myth, a fantasy, a folktale, if you will. Imagine a world where Donald Trump is once again running for president. Only this time, his youngest beloved son, Barron, is in college. And like any sensible young man his age, he's intrigued by crypto, maybe even obsessed with crypto. And so his father also becomes interested in crypto to the extent that he even goes to the Bitcoin conference. And we start hearing things we never imagined we would hear from a mainstream presidential candidate, at least in this cycle. We start hearing talk of pardoning Ross Ulbricht, of bringing the crypto companies back on shore after they've been cast into the wind like so many ashes to land in parts unknown after years of bad crypto regulation. We hear talk of a strategic Bitcoin reserve where the US government would be holding crypto on its balance sheet for the first time ever, a significant amount of crypto. Then Trump goes on to surround himself with this band of musketeers, people like J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK Jr., Elon Musk, all strong advocates, supporters, holders of crypto. And then that campaign starts going very, very well. The campaign on the other side of the aisle flounders, there's a replacement. That campaign starts floundering, the whole time refusing to take a stance on crypto, even though from the last 4 years, we already know what that stance is. All of a sudden, it's looking like this band of crypto holding musketeers might actually win this whole thing. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get this crazy news. This Bitcoin guy shows up and says he's found a way for everyone in Bitcoin to use their Bitcoin on Cardano, as if Cardano is the natural smart contract platform for Bitcoin with all of its gigantic assets, with its gigantic treasure trove of assets. The campaign keeps going. It's going better and better and better until all of a sudden they win. The crypto musketeers win the election. And they don't just win, they crush the opposition. They destroy the other side. They not only win the Electoral College, they win the popular vote. They win the Senate definitively. They're on the way to winning the House of Representatives, so that for the first time ever, they could actually pass reasonable, responsible crypto legislation and regulation, a full framework so that crypto can really run free for the first time ever in the United States. Simultaneously, Charles Hoskinson goes off to a meditation retreat, but not a normal meditation retreat, one of the ones where you take a lot of ketamine. You take a healthy dose of ketamine, so much ketamine that you can disconnect from your own reality and live 20 minutes inside a wolf, going around doing wolf things. Charles reveals this because he's a pretty transparent guy. He kind of says what's on his mind. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who hides a lot. He sort of wears his heart on his sleeve. Charles reveals this to the community. He recounts this crazy story about living for 20 minutes as a wolf. What does Cardano do that night? Cardano in the markets goes crazy. Cardano itself thinks it is a dark black wolf with glowing eyes, bounding through a snowbank in a snowy forest, escaping crypto winter, running free just as it knows that crypto is going to run free for the first time ever, starting in January. And that, my friends, is how Cardano activated wolf mode. If the only mode you're interested in is gimme them ducats mode like CJ in San Andreas, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies DRep address at the link below, or the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. So, starting from the conclusion, look at what has happened to our sweet, sweet Cardano. Look at this. Look at this gigantic set of green candles right here. This is insanity. Where were we at? We were cleared on here at 32 on the 5th. And by the end of the 10th, TradingView here is showing us at 65, 59, 66. It's insane. We haven't seen anything like this in Cardano since clear back in March when all the ETF madness was going on. This was really, to me, this was, I think a lot of people are trying to chalk this up. And we don't talk about, first of all, we don't talk about price or charts at all on this channel. But when it's a part of a big shift, when it's a part of a big tidal shift in Cardano, I think it's worth addressing here. People are trying to chalk this up to a single thing happening. But actually, there have been a lot of different things that have happened recently. Probably the biggest thing for Cardano specifically has been the Bitcoin OS news that I covered in the last video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know about Bitcoin OS and what that is, go watch the last video. It's called Endgame. Not because there ever is going to be an endgame in Cardano, but that is certainly, this may be the end of sort of the initial game in Cardano and the beginning of the real game. This is the end of the sort of first game. Can Cardano become some minimum viable version of what it aspires to become? I think Bitcoin OS is sort of the beginning of the end game as far as that initial game goes. So we've got that going on. But then we also had two different versions of the universe, one in which we end up with a continuation of the last 4 years, and one in which this band of crypto musketeers takes control of the US government. I mean, it would have been unimaginable in previous US elections to think that there would be like 4 different guys so deeply involved in a mainstream candidate's presidential campaign who are such enthusiastic crypto people. JD Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, RFK Jr., Elon, they all love crypto, famously love crypto in the case of Elon. They were all deeply involved in this campaign, all fighting for that version of the universe where we don't have a continuation in the last 4 years. And I know a lot of people are fans of that team, Team Blue. I'm sorry. I feel for you. I really am sad for you. Unfortunately, US elections are sort of a winner takes all thing. Someone must win, someone must lose. Both sides experience both sides of that coin. Unfortunately for you, Team Blue, you did not win this time. The other team won, and I'm glad. I'm sorry for you, but I'm glad because it was super obvious who was more pro crypto. In fact, the last 4 years, let us know. Choke point 2.0, definitely one side, very anti crypto, very, very anti crypto. And the other campaign had actually put in place some of the people who were deeply associated with Operation Choke Point 2.0. Some of those people were the key economic advisors in the other side's campaign. And they probably would have been some of the key economic advisors in the new White House had the other side won. So I'm very glad we ended up with this version of the future. Don't feel bad if your team lost, and it's probably for other reasons. You're probably deeply tied to some of their social policy on the other side. If that's the case, I feel sorry for you, but I'm glad. We also had this new blossoming of what Cardano could be. Obviously, we're transitioning into full Voltaire community governance. That means a lot of new things can happen. Charles and IOG have had to shoulder a lot since the foundation of Cardano, since the founding of Cardano. There were three founding entities, the Cardano Foundation and Emergo, and I'm very thankful and glad for the efforts of Emergo and the Cardano Foundation as well. But IOG especially has had to shoulder a lot of the burden of Cardano. Charles pointed out the other day, he himself paid out of pocket for all of the delegates to go to Buenos Aires for the Constitutional Convention. This is a lot. I want you to imagine for a moment if Charles had bailed on Cardano in 2018, in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. Charles could have easily bailed in any one of these years. Crypto founders, even famous ones, do it all the time. They just turn their back and they walk away from the communities they founded. In fact, it's harder to find communities in crypto where the founder is still around than it is to find ones where the founder has stuck around, especially over this long period of time from clear back in 2017 until now. Cardano would be a very different place. I think we would be very securely in the top 300 if Charles wasn't around. I mean, we never would have made it to Goguen if Charles hadn't stuck around after 2018. There's no way we would have made it to Goguen. We would probably be the number 275 crypto. I'm sure other people with lots of technical skills probably would have stepped up, but I firmly believe we would be, I'll say, I hope we would be in the top 300 if Charles had bailed on Cardano. So I'm very thankful for everything Charles has done. But intentionally, Voltaire opens up a whole new era where the community can decide to devote money to new things like marketing. They can do marketing in different ways. There are a lot of new things that can open up. That's going on. We've got the Bitcoin OS thing going on. Such a big deal. We've got midnight coming. There are so many things happening in Cardano. And as you can see from this chart, Cardano has been doing what crypto always does. I mean, the story of crypto hasn't changed since I first got into crypto. I got into crypto in the 2012, 2013 era. I think I bought my first Bitcoin in like 2014, right after the peak there. Was it in 2013 or 2014? Bought my first Bitcoin, super cheap. But it really hasn't changed since then. Famously, people have pointed out that crypto is the best asset in the world 1 year out of four. It's the worst asset in the world another year out of those 4 years. And it's just kind of in the doldrums the other 2 years. And we've just gone through the 2 years of doldrums. Now we begin that final march to glory where things go wild, when we can activate wolf mode. And that's what Cardano did just a night ago. Look at this. So this was just the high point while I was awake. While I was sleeping, we actually saw the apex of those candles, and these numbers would have been even more impressive. But just while I was awake, we got to this point. Look at this. Cardano, 7-day change, up 87%. How about that for 7 days, up 87%? And notice nothing else in the top 10 is topping that. Later on, Cardano did its peak and started coming down and the numbers changed. But for most of the day, it looked like this. Cardano was on top. And we've heard a lot of criticism from the proponents of some of these other blockchains in the top 10. That's okay. We don't need to worry about anything they say. The cream always rises to the top. And that is the case with Cardano. As soon as that news came out about Bitcoin OS, all of a sudden there was a huge spotlight on Cardano because everybody understands all of this market cap in Bitcoin. What is it right now? 1.6 trillion, $1.6 trillion. There is not a smart contract platform where they can use their Bitcoin, the assets on the Bitcoin blockchain, where they can use it natively as if they're not leaving the Bitcoin blockchain. Sure, there's wrapped Bitcoin on other chains and stuff like that, but that involves bridges and trusting third-party intermediaries and centralized points of failure, all those kind of things. The Bitcoin OS bridge is something else. It's something much more native, something that feels a lot less like a centralized point of failure. And that's put a huge spotlight on Cardano. And then you've got the second piece. You need the regulatory landscape to be good for crypto to really run free. We got that on Tuesday with Trump's big win. And not only was it Trump, because if just Trump won, it would have been, it, the markets would have probably reacted positively as they always do when Republicans win. But we had JD Vance in there. We had Vivek in there. We had RFK Jr. We had Elon. They all love crypto. They all love crypto. It was like this fantasy where a bunch of crypto musketeers got together and had a huge battle with the anti-crypto army, trounced them so bad, so bad. Look at this. 312 electoral votes to 226. That is a mandate from the American people, and part of that mandate is that the United States should be welcoming and open and free for crypto. It is a mandate for crypto. Sure, the mainstream is focused on a lot of other things, a lot of social issues, a lot of economic issues, a lot of international relations issues, but part of the mandate is the crypto mandate. This is the American people saying, hey, a huge proportion of us own crypto. We support crypto. We like crypto. We want a pro crypto future for the United States of America. And the same goes for the US House and the US Senate. Look at this. US Senate 53 on the pro crypto side. Not to say that there aren't pro crypto Democrats like Richie Torres. There certainly are. I think the younger members of the Democratic Party can already see the light. They are already pro crypto. It's just that you've got a lot of octogenarians in both parties. And they've probably got to go. Actually, I think after this election, after this trouncing, the Democratic Party is probably going to reevaluate a lot of things, and I hope crypto is one of those things. But the Republicans already have control of the Senate. They have 214 out of the necessary 218 seats in the House. There are 18 left to be called. They only need 4, guys. They need 4, and then they have control of the House as well. Why is this so important? Why is everyone talking about this? It's because if you want to be able to freely pass legislation, you really need solid control of both the Senate and the House. The Democrats barely had control of the Senate for the last 4 years, only because it was a tie. It was 50-50, but the vice president gets to cast a vote in the case of a tie. So Kamala Harris was able to push all the ties in the direction of the Democrats. JD Vance will not have to do that over the next 4 years. They have 53 out of the possible senators. So they will have solid control in the Senate with no vice president vote necessary. US House, like I said, they only need 4 to get to 218, and there are 18 seats still to be called. I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to take control of the House as well. So, if Trump and the crypto musketeers have control of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, what is Charles going to do? The answer will surprise no one who's been around Cardano for very long.
Second, a large part of my time in 2025 will also be devoted to the political process. I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time working with lawmakers in Washington, D.C., and quite a bit of time working with members of the administration to help foster and facilitate with other key leaders in industry the crypto policy. We have to do this and we have to get it done. There's a very high probability that the Republicans will control not only the Senate and the presidency, but also the Congress, the House. And in the process of doing so, this is the best opportunity we have ever had in the history of the industry to get clarity for our industry and remove the sword of Damocles that the SEC has reigned over the Cardano ecosystem, Ripple ecosystem, the Ethereum ecosystem, reigned over Solana.
Okay, so none of that is going to be a surprise to you if you've been around Cardano. Of course, Charles is going to get in there. He obviously has an in with this current administration because he contributed to the RFK campaign, and RFK is going to be a part of the administration in one way or another. The current chatter is that he'll have control of Health and Human Services and a couple of other different agencies. Of course, none of that is related to crypto, but you can imagine Charles gets in there. It's going to be hard for them to find somebody who doesn't know more about crypto. Does that mean that Charles is going to be like a cabinet member filling some new cabinet seat related to crypto? No, it does not. What he said was he's going to try to work with Congress and the current administration. Could that be in a completely informal role where he just shows up and tries to convince them to do the right thing for crypto? Yes. Could it be something more formal? Of course. If they did offer Charles something slightly more formal, would he take it? I'm sure he would. I'm sure he'd be happy to jump in there, roll up his sleeves, and try to help out either the next administration or various members of Congress, however he could. But is it likely to be something more informal? Probably. Like Charles points out in either this video or the Twitter space, the X space he gave later on, there are a lot of other people in crypto who might be more high profile than Charles, even. You could imagine CZ, although he just spent a little time in the slammer, so maybe not CZ. Charles named CZ as a potential there. But somebody like Brian Armstrong of Coinbase, the biggest company in all of crypto, maybe with the exception of Binance. You've got Jesse Powell over at Kraken. There are a lot of people in crypto who would probably be in the running for some kind of a formal role doing something with crypto in the next administration. But we all know Charles. Charles is going to be in there doing his thing. Could that could that have been the whole reason for this crazy wolf mode spike we saw in the Cardano markets last night? I don't think so. I think it's a combination of all of these things. It's getting the right kind of regulatory landscape with these US elections. It's Charles saying he's going to jump in there and do everything he can to try to get regulatory clarity for crypto. And it's also this next thing. Obviously, we've talked a lot already about the Bitcoin OS news, but this news is so huge. It's so monumental. Hear it directly from the founder of Bitcoin OS.
If you just had 1% of Bitcoin moving into Cardano, what that would mean is that the TVL on Cardano would go up by 40x. If you just had one.
So think about that. He's saying if 1% of the value of Bitcoin made its way onto the Cardano blockchain via the Bitcoin OS Grail bridge, the TVL of Cardano would go up by 40x. That is so huge, guys. That is gigantic news. This is gigantic news. And this is some news that it's really important for Cardano, but it's also really important for Bitcoin. That is a much bigger community. I maintain Cardano was the strongest community pound for pound in all of crypto. But guess what? Bitcoin is the biggest community by pounds in all of crypto. It's the very biggest. It's the absolute biggest community. They're so huge. This is also huge news for them because there hasn't been such a thing as Bitcoin DeFi. There hasn't been such a thing as Bitcoin NFTs. Sure, they had some things going on, tending in all those directions. There were wrapped assets and runes and all kinds of different things, but they couldn't really fully do any of the things we've always been able to do on blockchains like Ethereum and Cardano until Bitcoin OS. This is huge news for all of those people in Bitcoin. Maybe for the first time ever, they actually have a legit reason to buy the assets on one of these smart contract blockchains. I know. A lot of us in Cardano already are Bitcoin holders. I am. I've been a Bitcoin holder for a long, long time, much longer than Cardano has existed. But I think there are a lot of people in Bitcoin, probably a lot of Bitcoin purists who always just sort of saw Ethereum and other smart contract blockchains as enemies, as competitors, as opponents, as obstacles for Bitcoin. But this news, I think it might convince some percentage of those Bitcoin holders that all of a sudden, for the first time ever, they actually have an ally in crypto. It's sort of like the last 2 weeks have been the best 2 weeks ever for Cardano. It's almost like we were the captain of the football team, the student body president, the valedictorian, and we got into MIT. Now it's time to graduate. That's sort of an end game in and of itself. We sort of accomplished all the big goals we needed to accomplish, but then you have to graduate and reap the bounty of your harvest, but also parlay that into an adult life, real life, move on to the next stage. That's sort of what has to happen for Cardano now. We made it all the way to Voltaire. We're going to be running this blockchain ourselves. Midnight is coming. Smart contracts in Cardano are in a much better place than they were um, in September of 2021, the last peak in Cardano price, the top of the last cycle. We've accomplished a lot in the, right now, 3 years and change. But by the time we get to the end of this cycle next year, 4 years, we've accomplished a lot during this cycle. And getting the perfect regulatory landscape with these recent US elections, hopefully, we hope it all works out, but the elections going perfectly for us to accomplish that goal, and getting the Bitcoin OS thing, and and having midnight coming. It's sort of like we just had that perfect high school career, and now it's time to graduate and move on to adult life, all of the things in adult life. I don't think things could be looking any better for Cardano right now. The Bitcoin OS thing was just a huge surprise that sort of came out of nowhere, and that delivered the one ingredient we needed, and that's a huge number of captive users. Sorry, Bitcoin people, I just called you captives, but you are basically our captive users the second the Grail bridge goes live and your wallets can actually interact with our dApps, all those good things. But you're basically our captive users because we're UTXO and everybody else was silly and chose other systems. So apologies for that. But Cardano is basically in the best possible position it could be. Next year is that final year out of the cycle. I said there's 1 year where we're the worst asset in the world. There's another year where we're the best asset in the world, and then 2 years of doldrums. This is that good year, that good year out of the four. That's next year, the really fun year. This is sort of the graduation for Cardano after all the hard work. I hope everybody enjoys it as much as I do. I don't want to say now's the time when we can just kick back and enjoy it, because there's a lot more work to do, and there are people building really hard and creating awesome things and putting a lot of effort into it. So it's not really that we can kick back and enjoy it, but so much work has already been done. So many things have gone our way just in the last 2 weeks. Next year's going to be really fun. I hope you're looking forward to it, and I'll talk to you soon.